Okay, again, everyone, thank you for joining us on the webinar tonight for the 2017 Special Olympics Maryland Summer Games. And this is the Head of Delegation webinar. My name is Steve Bennett, Senior Director of Competition and Coach Development for Special Olympics Maryland. And we also have presenting tonight Mike Sarnowski, our Vice President of Programs for Special Olympics Maryland. We will both be giving some information tonight. And so with that, I will turn it over to Mike to give a little bit of instruction about the new webinar setup and the technology behind the audio, and then also how to ask questions.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome everyone. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us for this evening. Hopefully we'll be able to answer many of your questions, give you some information leading up to the Summer Games. I'm sure that we will not have the answers to all your questions, but we'll do our best. So as Steve indicated, the webinar system has changed a little bit. If anybody on the call has not joined a webinar that we've hosted in the last, well, since the beginning of the year, the audio is a little bit different, you may have noticed. This really helps from a recording standpoint as well as from controlling background noise and such. So what that also means, though, is when you have a question or you have something you want to contribute or comments you want to make, you have two different options that you can do. And actually, Steve, why don't you go to the next slide, because that has a bit of the description on it, which is also the table of contents or the agenda for the evening. So that way they can see. So Steve, if you can go to the next slide, or have you tried to? Okay. Still there, Steve? Steve,
yep,
you still there?
I am, Mike. I apologize. I went to move my phone at my desk, and it fell off the handle, so I had to redial in.
Oh, okay. Could you go ahead to the next slide?
Yeah.
Just because that has the description of asking questions. So there's two different options. And we've used this now for at least a dozen webinars, and it seems to work pretty well. One, in the control panel that you see, or you should see for GoToWebinar, there's a section that says questions. It may be collapsed, so all you see is the word questions, but if you hit the little arrow next to it, it opens up, and there's a space in there that you can type in a question. Throughout the webinar, I'll be monitoring that, and if it's something I can just answer right off, I will. If it's something that's worth opening to the whole group, I'll either ask it on your behalf or we'll unmute your phone line for that. The other option is you can raise your hand. If you look at your the control panel as well, there is a little icon that looks like a hand, and if you click on that, your hand is raised. I can see it on the screen, and I will at an appropriate time when we have a little bit of a break, it'll open that up. And actually, Bob, just to show you how easy this is to do, Bob Baker put a question in of, can you see who is online? No, you can't at the moment, but you should be able to do so now. There should be a little box that has attendees on it, so you can see that as well. And then, Bob, just as a heads up, it looks like you haven't put in your code for your PIN, so I can't unmute your phone, but you can go ahead and do that. And then just as a little test, it looks like Ellen has raised her hand. And Ellen, I'm going to unmute your line if you had a question, if you can go, just so folks can see how easy this is. So you should be able to speak now, Ellen. Don't prove me wrong. Got you hooked up through your computer. Ellen, you still there? Okay. Well, it generally has worked. I've just muted Ellen again, so if she starts talking, unfortunately, we won't hear her. And Frank also made a point that you do have to hit the arrow icon to see the people online. Prior to Bob's question, you didn't have that access at all, but you do now. So anyhow, that's our technical portion of the program. Folks will get more and more used to this as we go through and use this technology. It does significantly help The one downside is if we unmute everybody's lines, the background noise at that point is actually somewhat worse than it was under the old system. But overall, this works out better for us. So that said, Steve, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you, and then just let me know when you need me to jump in for that one section.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. In the far bottom right corner of the document you see right now, again, hopefully everyone knows this by now, but if not, mark your calendars. The games are June 9th through the 11th this summer. And again, the agenda tonight, similar to other webinars we've had, if you've been on those, again, we welcome everyone. Thanks for your attendance. As Mike said, taking a lot of your time out of your busy schedules to join us tonight. We'll go over some maps of the area around Towson campus, as well as the surrounding areas. I'll give a few updates for the games, registration deadlines, timelines, some schedules, talk about some of the special events, a little update on some transportation, and then other general updates and information we'd like to share with you at this time. We'll also hit on some of the upcoming webinars for the sports webinars, as well as the next HOD webinar. And then at the end, as always, we'll do our question and answer. So again, as promised, here's one of our first maps. Again, just demonstrating or showing the different locations. As you can see here, this is where Loyola Blakefield is, where the swimming venue is. That will be the same location as last year. We have Cockeysville Middle School, where the team competition for softball will mostly take place, as well as a few designated games on campus. And for softball, so individual skills will take place at campus right beside the main softball stadium. And we have our university, Towson University Stadium down in this area. Another map. Again, this is just kind of showing you the different locations, mostly on campus. But again, up here is the swimming venue. And then we have different locations on campus. The Glen Towers, which we will be in Tower A this year. And we have the main drive, the sports complex area, and we'll be over here with two other housing units, Towson Run Apartments, as well as the Douglas housing unit. Getting more in depth with our campus map. Again, like I said, here is the Douglas housing unit, as well as Towson Run Apartments, and then we will also be in Glen Tower A for the delegation housing. A few other things we want to point out. This is the route that we'll be taking you out to Loyola Blakefield for swimming and Cockeysville Middle School for the softball venue. Be some of the bus locations similar to last year. So be ready. Those will be the same pickups. The University Union in this area, that's where we'll have the delegation registration as we typically have. And then the dining hall, Susquehanna room, I probably butchered that a little bit. And then the head of delegations meeting is mentioned there. We will have our first one on June 8th there. And then most likely, like we did last year, we may move the others over to the other side of campus, but we're still working on that determination at this point. A couple other things. This is obviously the United Stadium where track and field or athletics will take place. And then here is the softball venue on campus, again with selected teams will play there. Softball skills, the adjacent field right beside the stadium. And then at this point, cheerleading will take place in the Towson Center on Friday. There's also a new thing this year. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but Young Athletes Program and the Motor Activities Training Program, looking to have those this year. The possibility exists. We're looking at possibly doing that in the Towson Center. The other location may be in the CQ Arena. So again, we're just working through some of those details at this point. But again, with CQ Arena here, it will be the opening ceremony, family reception, and the champions reception. And I think, did I hit everything on there, Mike? Did you see anything that, the block party? this is another thing, as Mike mentioned at the very beginning, we're not going to have all the answers. One of the things that's still in the development phase right now is the block party and some activities for the Olympic Village, etc. One possibility is that it will be in Lot 20. That's why it's tentative. The other possibility we're looking at is possibly having it in Lot 21. So we're just working through some logistical issues and concerns and figuring that out at this point. But that'll give you an idea. It should be in one of those two locations. So there'll be further information as we go forward in the planning phase. This is the map of Loyola Blakefield campus. One of the things we're working on, as I think we all found last year if you went up to the swimming venue, is that parking was a little bit of a concern. So again, I want to stress here, do not park on any campus roads or streets. It's got to be in a designated parking spot only. We're working on having some parking attendants to help and assist with that. We're also looking at the possibility of doing some permitted parking only. In doing that, we also will have some additional buses that George and the transportation team from Towson are working on in order to get possibly families and, of course, all the delegations to the venue. So we'll have additional buses in the morning and in the afternoon, and then we'll have the regular kind of loop throughout the day. The other thing, same as last year, is make sure your families and everybody knows not to bring their own chairs because the chairs will be set up in the on the basketball courts, very protective of their nice courts there. We will provide chairs there. So again, just relay that to everyone, not to bring their own chairs as they were allowed to in the past, I think, when we were in Burdick at Towson.
That's correct.
This is kind of the roadmap to get to Cockeysville Middle School. And again, I just want to stress that it is the location for softball team competition, but there will be some teams who will have the opportunity to play at the stadium on Towson campus. Those teams who will be designated to play those games at the stadium at Towson will be notified prior to the games so that you can prepare for that. And again, individual skills competition for softball will also be at Towson. So I just want to make sure there's no confusion there.
And Steve, just a thank you to everybody who responded, all the softball coaches and other area leaders who responded to the questionnaire about the possibility of moving the entirety of softball to Cockeysville Middle School. Your responses were very, very helpful in making a decision as to some of the locations. So thank you much. Similarly, I'm sure you'll touch on it. Thank you for those who responded to the survey regarding the opening ceremony parade. So again, we heard you and use that information right away.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Mike. And like Mike said, you know, we're all a team here together working through, and we want to bring everyone that we can into the decision-making process. So again, thanks to our management team and thanks to you guys for all being a part of that decision. Okay, Mike, I'll turn it over to you for some registration processes.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully this is familiar to folks. The only thing for the most part that's changed here are the dates. But the registration, there's a couple different steps in the registration process. There's the training registration. Your GMS person should be doing all that, or people, and that all needs to be in the system by April 20th, which is a Thursday. We will be, I've already got it on my calendar, got the whole day marked out the next day. We will be transferring stuff into summer games the next day. So that will be, I mean, that is a firm deadline there. That's the date by which you need to get everybody who's participating in your programs into GMS in order for them to be eligible to participate in summer games, all your athletes, your partners, your coaches, volunteers, et cetera, within your delegation. But that'll happen that next day, and over the weekend, at the latest by Monday, we will then open up summer games for you guys to start doing your competition registrations. We'll also, again, by Monday, be sending out rosters with the status of who's missing what paperwork. Of course, you can access that right now in GMS, but we'll send hard or electronic copies out to everyone, and you'll get that again by Monday. So always get the question of when will it be open to folks. The answer will be whatever that Monday is, 21st, 22nd, 23rd. I think it's the 24th. Then the May 4th deadline for any outstanding paperwork, again, is firm. It's for any outstanding medicals, et cetera, on down the line. On May 5th, we will be flagging people for deletion. We'll let you know who's going to be deleted, and then within a couple days after that, they will be removed from summer games. So please do follow up with that. Then similarly, the competition registration deadline, that's when all competitive events need to be in GMS, and if there is a score that's required, which is the case for virtually everything except for people on cheerleading teams or on softball teams, there's a score that's required. That all needs to be done by May 22nd. On May 23rd, or the night of May 22nd, areas will be locked out of making changes to summer games in GMS. As has always been the case, you will still absolutely be able to go in and run reports, look people up, so on down the line. But in terms of making changes on the 23rd in the morning, first thing in the morning is the intent, you will be locked out. Let's see. Steve, I'm not sure what that, and then also on the 22nd, you need to have any chaperones. Chaperones and an HOD are the only people who you can add to your delegation after that training registration deadline. And we allow that because we know that in some cases you're still lining up, particularly if folks are staying overnight or whatever. You may not have that from some agencies or lining up additional chaperoning. But again, the deadline for that is the 22nd. For track and swimming, SW, as hopefully everybody knows, aquatics is now called swimming. We'll accept score updates. You need to send them in to your regional sports director. Again, you can't make the changes yourself after May 22nd. So send them in. That gets you another weekend or so for additional competitions that can help. We are accepting only improvements to scores, no event changes, et cetera. And it is absolutely worthwhile to send in those improvements to your scores, to your athlete scores, because there is the maximum effort rule, which, depending upon their performance, if they exceed their score by an unfair amount, the athlete is potentially disqualified. So those of you who watched some of the coverage that was offered on the World Games in Austria, they actually had a nice little segment trying to explaining that. A friend of Steve's and mine, Craig Pippert from Special Olympics North America, gave a nice explanation of the rationale behind that. So protect your athletes, make sure we have the best score in there. And then on-site registration with Bill DePaul and Jane Dunn for the housing and all will be done. For those of you who've been there before, it's the same location, the second level of the University Union. The next bullet of that the shirts should be available for pickup. The operative word there is should. I think we're now up to about 80% of the time they're there, or there shortly after it opens. We hope to continue that. So Steve, go ahead to the next. And I think this is just those same dates just laid out. This is the slide that folks in the coach sessions got and explains all the same thing. I'm not going to read through it, but this is maybe a little handier for folks here. So next.
And again, as Mike said, I was remiss and mentioned this earlier, that this slide deck will be sent to everyone, so you'll have access to it. Just wanted to let you all know, if we did not mention that earlier, that all these slides will be sent to everyone. So,
and they'll also be posted on MySOMD as well. So for registration, summer games and winter games are the two events for which there is a fee. Excuse me. For summer games, the overnight, the registration fee for those folks who are staying overnight on campus is $65. That's a flat fee that covers their registration there. It gives you an idea that it's roughly half the cost of the lodging, but it's just still a flat fee. And then that cost, that estimated cost is probably of the $128 is probably a little bit low. It really depends upon how many rooms we get in which part of campus. Those of you who have stayed on the towers as opposed to the West Village or Towson Run area, you can tell by the difference between I don't know what quality is the right word, but how the dorms look. There is a difference, and that difference is also demonstrated in the pricing that we pay as well. So once we work out what the actual cost is, there will be we'll know what the total on-site cost is for folks. That applies to the third bullet that we'll get to in a second. As is the case, or has been the case for many years, there is no fee to the areas for day of delegation members, provided that the delegation members, or the ratio of athletes to supervisory personnel, is no more than 3 to 1. This, again, we've instituted this over the last several years. The standard across all of Special Olympics, not just at USA Games or World Games, but for virtually every other state as well, is a 4 to 1 ratio. We're giving you a little extra on that as a 3 to 1 ratio. From that, if you have any athletes who need a one-on-one or additional supervision, you can work that out within that that extra personnel that you get by having a 3 to 1 ratio as opposed to a 4 to 1 ratio. There shouldn't be any need for any additional one-on-ones. Plus, in addition, we are tight on housing. Steve, I'm not sure if you're going to touch on that later, but area directors were given an initial housing allotment, and we want to be sure that we have as much housing and can have as many athletes who wish to stay overnight on campus as possible. And by handing out additional supervisory personnel, that's a challenge. So again, we're giving you extras across the board by going with the 3 to 1 ratio as opposed to a 4 to 1, so you can build that in. So, and then the ratio again, we talked about that there. For any above that 3 to 1 ratio, there really shouldn't be any staying on campus. But if somehow that does work out, you would be charged, or your area would be charged, the full incremental cost of that person staying on campus. Again, we estimate that to be $128. For day of attendees, as noted above, there is no fee for standard or for day of delegation members unless you go above that 3 to 1 ratio, in which case you would be charged the on-site cost, which is essentially 2 lunches, Saturday, Sunday. That's a flat fee, whatever we work out that cost to be. So we're not looking at who ate lunch on Saturday but didn't eat it on Sunday. It's just a flat fee, folks. So we'll have that. It should be close to that $16 figure. So we'll, as we've done, I think, for the last several winter and summer games, following the competition registration deadline, we'll also provide to area leaders the estimated costs based on how many people they have in their delegation. So if they need to make some changes, they have that option. Steve, go ahead. And Joyce, I'll get to your question as soon as I finish these slides, because I think we may be answering some of them. So registration, again, for scratches, we need to have any of your scratches that you have no later than noon on June 5th. And if we get them by then there's you won't be charged anything for those people. After June 5th, if they're an overnight registrant, you're going to get charged as that $65 registration fee or whatever it would be, if perchance you're above the 3 to 1 ratio. You've got plenty of time to get it in. You've got till June 5th. Then the scratches, they need to be in writing to your regional sports director. And actually, we anticipate having being fully staffed with that by the time of summer games. We're keeping our fingers crossed on that right now. And then we talked through the delegation with the 3 to 1 and so on, so no need for that. So anyway, I think that's it on registration. Joyce, we're going to hold your question. I didn't read it thoroughly. It's on opening ceremonies, and I'll have you ask that when we get to that in the presentation with Steve. Okay. So actually, before I go back, anybody else have any questions related to registration before I mute my phone and turn it back all entirely over to Steve? And you can raise your hand or type a question in to the question box. I don't. Okay, Steve, looks like we don't have any questions, so back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Again, just talking about some of the basics of the general overview of the schedule for the summer games. As in the past, Thursday, June 8th, will be the delegation registration in the University Union second floor, same location as in the past. Will be operational there from about 2 p.m. to 6. And hopefully, like Mike had mentioned earlier, we will have the shirts ready for distribution for the opening ceremony parade for the athletes and the members of your delegation. Also the head of delegation meeting later that evening will be, again, the same place as last year in the Lock Raven Room, which is right beside the second floor lobby. That's where we will meet for our meeting leading into the games. So again, just a reminder, that's only for the head of delegations. Space is limited in that room, and we also want to make sure everyone's in there and there's no further distractions. Moving on to June 9th, again, cheerleading will be the main competition there on Friday. There's the times there, 10:30 to 3. The important factor here is lunch will only be provided for the official delegates of cheerleading. No one else will receive the lunch there on Friday. Family hospitality will be most likely in the Towson Center. And again, the tentative piece there is depending on how we configure the block party in the Olympic Village, etc. We may be looking at having one centralized location for family hospitality at Towson campus. If we do that, we will also have family hospitality at Cockeysville for softball, as well as at Loyola for swimming. Otherwise, we may look at, again, having family hospitality at each of the venues on Towson campus, but that's still in the works right now. Dinner for Friday. Again, thanks to those of you who were able to attend the area directors meeting. One of the things we discussed there was leading into the block party and leading into opening ceremony. One of the potential changes this year is we may have dinner either at the Towson Center parking lot or the CQ Arena parking lot, depending on where the Olympic Village goes. It'd be an outside dinner hosted and donated from Famous Dave's. We're looking at either having that on Friday or Saturday, again, based on some feedback we got from the area directors meeting. So that's why it's tentative there. We'll let you know once we get some further details. Same thing, as I said, with the block party, that's why it's tentative. Merchandise, again, tentative until we get some of those details finalized. The coaches' meetings for Friday will involve athletics, bocce, and softball. We're looking at securing the same rooms that we had there last year. So the exact locations, we'll let you know as soon as we get that information. Again, like we said, we're not going to have all the answers. Lot 20 is tentative for the staging for the parade of athletes for the opening ceremony. The reason why that's tentative is it may also be in Lot 21. And again, we're figuring out the logistics and the movement of individuals from whichever location so that we can get people in for the opening ceremony. The opening ceremony and torch lighting will be in CQ Arena. One of the things that we've discussed, again, with feedback and collaboration with the area directors and our management team, is one of the things we're looking at doing to shorten down some of the opening ceremony is to have a live feed of the lighting of the cauldron. If we're able to do that, we will keep everyone in the CQ Arena through the lighting of the cauldron, live feed that into the CQ Arena. Everybody gets to see it on the Jumbotron and the screens, and then we'll depart after that for the bus loading. And we move on to Saturday. You know, the basic schedule. We'll have breakfast. You see the times. I'm not going to go through everything. The competition, again, a lot of this, the family hospitality merchandise to be determined. But we will have the head of delegation meeting in the Lock Raven room, or again, like we did last year, we'll look at maybe having that in one of the rooms there by Unitas Stadium. Again, as we have in the last couple of years, I believe, softball in the evening, we're looking at having the home run derby. That's always a cool thing to come and watch and check out. And then the Olympic Park and Dance, again, depending on what we determine with the location and the time frame with that. It's tentatively Towson Center, but it may be in one of the parking lots. Again, we're working through those details. The family reception, make sure your families know about this. That will be in the CQ Arena. It's really good information for the families, and that will be 7:30 to 8:30 on Saturday evening. And our last day of competition, again, will be Sunday, June 11th. The breakfast will be same as usual. Have the buses going, the competition, and again, the family hospitality will be open during those hours, depending upon where they are. Some updates for the summer games. Again, we've kind of talked about the block party. The Friday dinner may or may not be in the dining hall or outside. Again, we'll let you know. We'll go through all of this. But some of the activities we're hoping to have for the block party be, again, music from the DJs, some dance demonstrations, some entertainment, possibly some sports clinics, different art and craft kind of activities. We're planning also to have some food vendors that will have some food available for purchase from other spectators, supporters, and family members. We are looking at having the opening parade start, the staging start about 6:30. And again, once we figure out how that's all going to play out, we'll give you some further details. The weather plan for the block party and staging for the parade will be in Towson Center. And again, we will work with the head of delegations to communicate when we anticipate inclement weather, and we'll communicate to each of you about any pending decisions or impending actions that need to take place. Some of the things we do need to know from each of you would be your total number of delegation members that will be attending the opening ceremony. We need to know that in order to make sure we have the seating and they work on placements with the numbers that they receive. And with that, also, if there's any individuals who use wheelchairs or have other mobility challenges that would prevent them from using stairs, so that we can make sure that we have the accommodations made for those individuals. With that information, you can just send it to your regional sports director contact.
And Steve, you actually can go back to there. Joyce, I'm opening up your phone line, and you can ask your question regarding opening ceremonies and shirts. Joyce, you can just go ahead and talk into your phone.
Yeah, I was. Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Yep, thank you.
I was just wondering, some years on Friday evening for opening ceremonies, we noticed that there are delegations that have really cool T-shirts that look different than the standard ones that you all give us. And I just want to know if there's any rule about that. Are we allowed to do that, or what is the deal with that?
I can touch on that a little bit, and then from a policy perspective, Mike, you might want to chime in. One of the things we do is we get all of the shirts from one of our vendors that we use throughout the year, Maryland Screen Printers, and they provide the shirts for the delegations for the parade. I know that what they try to do is get different styles and different colors for each delegation. So I remember in years past, I don't remember last year, that, you know, sometimes there's some tie-dye or some stripes and some different colors. There's no rhyme or reason to that, but I don't know if there's delegations who also have their own and don't utilize what's provided. So, Mike, if you have any additional comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any policy per se, as long as it's tasteful. I mean, we're going to provide those shirts for free. as a donation. I mean, as long as Maryland Screen Printers continues the donation, again, it's very generous of them. But they're no, if an area wants to go and do that at their own expense, that's fine. Again, just needs to be tasteful, which I'm sure everybody would be.
Yeah, tasteful. And then, yeah, and then just another add on that is tasteful and also no commercial messaging.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, opening ceremonies has the same application or same rule for commercial messages as competition does, where athletes cannot be wearing any advertisement or logos of any kind, other than if it's embedded into the shirt itself, like it's a Nike shirt and the Nike small logo or whatever happens to be. Yeah, thank you, Steve, for that catch.
Yep. Again, transportation. We're working through some of the routes, etc., for transportation, and looking at adding a couple new loops around. Again, based on things that we noticed from a management perspective, as well as feedback that we received from the delegations and family members. But again, we'll go over this more detail and more further clarification once we get closer to the games. But there will be some routes that were designated on the map to where you can walk from the housing units to the University Union to get on the buses. A couple of things to make note of. Again, just a reminder, when you get on the buses, the ones that are staying on campus, you can get a little bit more people in there because you are allowed to stand on the buses. But if you're getting on a bus that's going out to swimming or to softball off-site, there is no standing on that. Once you leave campus, get on the mainstream roads, you must be seated in those. This is the bus schedule. Nobody take any notes about this one. It's currently under revision. This is basically the schedule we had from last year, including some of the housing units that you'll see. That's not going to be the schedule for this year. We'll update this, but again, it's just to give you an idea, but it is currently under revision. Once we get those revisions in place with Towson and their transportation team, we will communicate a more detailed and more up-to-date bus schedule for everyone once we get that. So don't pay too close.
One thing to definitely point out, though, even though it's not here on the schedule, can you talk about the loop around the stadium that we will be offering on Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, again, like we heard and we noticed, it was a collaboration that there are some challenges for individuals who have mobility challenges or health challenges, etc. And what we're looking at doing is having a couple dedicated buses that will do a continuous loop, basically from lot 13 and 14, which is if you're on the press box side of the stadium, I believe, looking across the stadium track.
Steve, can you back up to the map, maybe? That might help folks. You can show them right on the map. Yeah, this is based on feedback from area leaders, from folks at the head of delegation meetings, and also from our family coordinators, Debbie Credito and Susan Holland, who have pushed for this and made the strong suggestion. So.
Okay, let's go. That's Loyola. So yeah, basically, let me find my cursor. Here's lot 13 and 14. That's a lot of places where volunteers and some family members and spectators will park. And moving volunteers and families, etc., to get them down here to lot 19 and have a drop there for bocce. And they will also continue up here to drop people off potentially for the Olympic Village here, as well as here. They'll come up here. I'm not sure exactly where they'll turn around, and they'll just continually go back and forth on this loop so that we don't have the issue, or we hopefully won't have the issue we had last year. A lot of people, or not a lot, but some coming and parking here where we had no parking signs, and that created an issue for if we had an emergency evacuation. But again, let your family members, etc., know that there will be a loop taking people to and from just this side of campus, and it will be a continuous loop running all day, Saturday and Sunday. So hopefully that will alleviate some of the challenges for individuals, because that can be a long walk for sure. And with some of the hills and the grade there, we understand that can be an issue. So we're looking to resolve that for everyone.
Right. And we had a loop previously, and we will continue to have the loop that goes over to the dorms and the union side and such. But the feedback was that if all you wanted to get to is from Lot 13 to softball on campus, that's an awful long trip to take. So that's why we're instituting this in addition to the other loop that we've always had. And yes, we will have the buses clearly designated so folks get on the right bus, or as best possible, we make sure they get on the right bus.
Thank you, Mike. And I forgot that the map was the next
right.
big.
Oh, well.
Sorry about that, everyone. A couple other updates again. Depending on what we work out for the ceremony, like I said, we want to have everyone housed and staying in the CQ Arena until the end, and we'll do a live feed. And then just help us as we look to have the delegations depart the CQ Arena after the opening ceremony to board the buses to get back to their housing units. But we will call the different delegations. So I know it may be a little bit loud, and we'll try to work with everyone. But we want to do that in an orderly fashion so that there's not any confusion. So again, they're working on that schedule and that departure at this time. So,
and just so folks know, because we did get a question in the question queue. We said we'd be doing this in the past and have attempted to. By having everybody inside the arena, we'll have much more control and can get folks out in a somewhat more orderly fashion than when everybody was up in the parking lot and everybody on their own ignored all instruction and would go down. So we're pretty confident that this will work much better than it has in the past couple of years when we've gone outside.
Thank you, Mike. Again, I'm not going to hit on it. We already hit on it enough about the Olympic Park and the dance, working on those things. But a couple of things, we are looking at the alternative activities, whether it's art activities or having a movie, depending on location and space available for those athletes who don't really enjoy the dance or it's too loud, etc. We're looking at alternative activities for those individuals. And I know that the number one question everyone has is what's the theme of the dance from the athletes. At this point, we do not know. We have had a couple suggestions. If you have any that are appropriate, don't hesitate to let us know, and we'll pass them along to our management team and see what the creative ideas are. And hopefully we'll have an answer for you as we get, well, we will by the time of the games, but hopefully by the next time we talk. Again, the exciting factor is Young Athletes Program, which is up and running, and a lot of good stuff happening with that program. Again, either in the CQ or Towson Center. Both of those activities will occur on Saturday, June 10th, and the time frame, we're kind of estimating that to run from anywhere from 11 to 2:30-ish, somewhere in that time frame. So the Young Athletes Program is more kind of an open house. Come check it out and get involved and pass along some information to family members who have young children that would be able to join in and register for that, as well as the Motor Activities Training Program. One of the main things, again, as we are a sports organization, and with that we also like to promote health and fitness. We encourage everyone, and if you could help as well, to pass along the information to your coaches and or family members to have the athletes attend the Healthy Athletes components during the games. here you have the dates. It'll be on June 10th in the Towson Center from around noon till 6, and it's free of charge. We have a lot of professionals from the disciplines of special smiles, dentists, podiatry, health fitness areas, optometrists, all the healthy hearing, and general health promotion. Some of those disciplines, we're looking at some of the components and where we can offer those and spread them out amongst the summer games. One of the things I will say is it really is a great environment for our athletes to get checked up on. It has been in some cases life-saving and can be life-altering. And one example that I'll give, although there's several, is even in at the World Games we had one athlete that went to the opening eyes, got the eyes checked, and they found cancer. And if it wasn't found within 2 more weeks, it would have been terminal. But because they went to the screening, it was detected, they were able to take care of it and basically save the athlete's life. So again, it's very important to take advantage of these opportunities for the athletes. Again, we talked about family hospitality. We will have them at all 3 locations at Towson, Loyola, and Cockeysville. At Towson, it will just be determined if we have one centralized location or spread out at different venues. The family facts that Susan and Debbie put together will be sent out on or about or hopefully before, but we're looking at the deadline of June 5th to get that out by mail as well as electronically. And again, merchandise will be available throughout the games. It will be in the Olympic Park, to be determined the location. We're also looking at having merchandise available at both the swimming venue and the softball competition off-site at Cockeysville.
And Steve, actually, I'm sorry, one thing that I missed when we put that slide together, we don't have the date on it yet, but we will be having a webinar for family members as well. We tried that for the first time with winter games with some success. It's certainly optional. We'll still have the information going out, but it's an opportunity for family members, particularly anybody who's never been to summer games before, to get some information and most importantly to ask questions should they have any. So we'll keep you posted on that as it gets closer. It'll also be included in communication out to the family members as well. But like I say, it did it for the first time with winter games. It was successful enough that we certainly want to continue trying it, and just one more vehicle, one more method or opportunity to get information into the hands of family members. Thanks.
Great. Bye. Again, meals, all registered members from your delegations will have lunch on Saturday and Sunday. And again, like I mentioned earlier, the cheerleaders will be the only individuals who get lunch on Friday. Everyone staying overnight will be provided dinner and breakfast during the designated periods, which would be the dinner on Friday night, breakfast on both Saturday and Sunday, and dinner as well on Saturday evening. If there's other individuals we're looking at, you can purchase the meals, breakfast. It'll be about $8 for breakfast. Again, $8 for lunch. And dinner will be approximately $11. We are confirming with Loyola Blakefield at this time that, as they did last year, concessions will be available at the swimming venue. We're also looking again, like I mentioned earlier, but just to reiterate it, during the block party and maybe throughout the event, based on interest from vendors, looking at having some concessions available at Towson campus as well. The control center will be over near the stadium, same place as it's been for probably many years, in the Minigan room. We will, again, we talked about delegation registration on the 8th. I'm not going to hit that again. The housing, just to reiterate, we're in one of the towers this year. That's Glen Tower A, and the Towson Run Apartments in Douglas. Jane Dunn, if you've worked with her in the past, if not, you will this year, regarding housing. She will be contacting each of you to receive your housing. Again, like Mike had mentioned earlier, we gave out the initial allotments to the area directors, and we're working with them on any additional requests or receiving any rooms that they don't think they'll use, so we can reallocate those. And then Jane will take that information and verify the housing list that she's provided versus what's in the games management system, or GMS. And again, hopefully we won't have this problem, but if any delegation's housing anybody who's not officially registered in their delegation on campus, this year that delegation will be spoken with, and we'll have a meeting, and then they will be ineligible for housing for next year for the violation. As always, the housing keys, just return them to the front desk after you get out on Sunday. And then a reminder, as Mike has stressed throughout the webinar, everyone needs to conform to the 3-to-1 ratio. Again, as Mike said, it's very lenient compared to other places and other state programs where it's a 4-to-1. So, I think we're being generous there, and hopefully everyone can work through that.
Steve, one other note, just for folks so they can plan properly. I think most heads of delegation know this, but we have the head of delegation meeting and delegation registration on Thursday. We do have the head of delegation can stay over in the dorms in their assigned room Thursday night. Your whole delegation can't come, but that is available to you for Thursday evening if you would like to make use of it. There's no additional charge for that, but again, it's just the head of delegation. If there's a special situation where we're talking 1 or 2 other people, that might be possible. It's not your whole delegation. But yeah, so factor that in as you're making your plans coming down, since we do have the head of delegation meeting that Thursday evening live and in person at Towson.
Thank you, Mike. Again, we're working on the event guide and making some updates. We will send that out to everyone who's registered in GMS with correct email addresses. We'll send that out to everyone so that you have that information. Also send it out to all the area directors and area directors support, and we'll make it available in other locations electronically and make sure everyone has access to that. As we always stress with every event, just make sure everyone's health conscious and aware of the weather and dehydration. Bring your own sunscreen, rain gear, bug repellent if as it can happen, if we get some heavy rains leading up to the games with standing water, maybe some mosquitoes and other bugs that may be around. But again, hydrate, especially if we're going to have some high temperatures. Just make sure everyone's drinking water throughout the day and staying hydrated. Again, we will communicate with everyone about any inclement weather plans, review with the heads of delegation during the meetings on site. One thing to just clarify is Towson University, Special Olympics Maryland staff, as well as our management team, will collaborate and make decisions with those situations, and then we will notify everyone. The reason I want to stress that is because sometimes, you may hear something through the grapevine, or someone says, we need to close this down or whatever. We are very diligent in working with everyone to make sure that we're looking out for the health and safety of everyone. So just make sure if you hear that and it doesn't come from you guys or from us, as far as you guys talking to each other after we notify anyone, let us know or contact us so that there's no miscommunication or confusion there, and we can either verify or help eliminate some confusion. Again, as always, with any lightning, we've got to postpone everything for 30 minutes. The other thing, as we had to do last year, was take down some tents because of the high winds. The one thing I want to stress is If you could also relate that to any family members and spectators coming from your delegation, that to please comply with those decisions. Again, it's for the health and safety. We had a couple issues last year where individuals did not want to take down their tents. And again, it can really cause some damage to not only Towson's property, but more importantly, to any other athletes, partners, coaches, delegation members, families, anybody. If one big gust comes through and takes up a tent, it can be really ugly. So again, just help or notify your individuals to please comply with any decisions that are made for the health and safety for everyone involved. Again, I won't spend much time on this as the slides will be sent out, but these are the upcoming webinars and the registration links for those. And again, the HOD meeting on site, as well as the next HOD webinar on May 31st. These currently are the contacts for the regional sports director positions. As Mike indicated, hopefully in the very near future, we'll have some new announcements to be made with filling some of the vacancies. So, Mike, I'll turn it over to you if you have anything else to add, and or if there's questions that come from the group.
Now, the only thing I would add, and this is a webinar about summer games, so as I broach this next topic, this is not a webinar about the 2018 USA Games, but we do need to acknowledge and let folks know that if you weren't aware of it, athletes and teams for softball, track and field or athletics, swimming, and bocce will be selected from this year's summer games. And track and field also from the interscholastic program this fall, or this spring rather, will be included in that too. Because we always get questions coming in, no, we will not be announcing folks at summer games. We do expect to have selections made shortly thereafter, but just be aware of that, and your area directors have received, actually, and hopefully some of you are on the area memo that includes what slots that we have. We have a pretty good sized delegation, not as many as who went in 2014 to New Jersey, but we do have a pretty good size, and I think it's 7 track athletes, 6 swimmers, 4 bocce athletes, and a partridge in a pear tree, a traditional softball team coming from summer games. So we'll be looking and making selections based on that, their performance here at summer games. So again, just want to make sure everybody's aware of it, so there's no question of whether you were or weren't aware. Okay. But other than that, again, open for questions. You can just raise your hand on the control panel or type a question in, and we'll see what we can do. Hopefully we can answer most of them. Going once. Actually, while you're typing in your questions, one other, I do not want to end on a negative, so I'll try to see if I can spin this as a positive. Keep in mind that Special Olympics Maryland does have a conduct policy and a code of conduct, as does Special Olympics overall. As you may have heard, we are looking at revising and updating it, but the existing one is in place. And as a part of that, there, as was noted leading into the basketball tournament, there is 0 tolerance for fighting. And it is the expectation, the requirement for heads of delegations and coaches to make sure that their delegation members act appropriately. And it's unfortunate. We have over the several years that I've been back on staff, there have been a number of athletes and I think a couple coaches who have gotten who've been suspended for a year or more, and we don't want to do that. So we want to take a positive turn here and make sure everybody shares with their delegations that what's expected. The codes of conduct will be in the event guide, but they're also, it's pretty straightforward, obvious stuff as well. Also keep in mind that Summer Games and Special Olympics, as well as the Towson campus, is 100% smoke-free, and is also Special Olympics events are alcohol-free events. That applies to delegation members as well as spectators, family members and such there. So just make sure folks are aware of that. So that said, as I'm joining on a bit, I don't see any questions yet. So I'm guessing that there are none. With that in mind, then I want to thank you again, and it's also 8 o'clock straight up. So I want to thank you again for joining us and taking an hour out of your evening. Hopefully this was helpful. If it didn't answer a whole bunch of questions you might have had, hopefully it reassured you of the information that you already knew or already expected. So looking forward to seeing many of you throughout the season. And at our next head of delegation meeting, which I think you said was May 31st, we'll look to get the slides out and a link to the recording in the next couple days. And I personally look forward to seeing all of you throughout the season. Back to you, Steve.
Yeah, as Mike said, on behalf of the management team for Summer Games, as well as the staff here, thank you for what you guys do day in and day out in support of the athletes, partners, coaches, family members, etc. Obviously, without you out doing what you do in the field, Special Olympics doesn't happen. So we really thank you for what you do. And like Mike said, we're looking forward to seeing everyone during the upcoming event, leading up to Summer Games and all the other activities that Special Olympics has to offer. So again, thanks again for tonight, and look forward to seeing everyone at Summer Games, if not beforehand.
Thank you. Have a great evening.